It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here without Barnet today. Barnet's away.
Barnet's not here.
I know, but who is?
Hi, it's Susan.
Okay, so folks, every once in a while, Barnet leaves and we get the opportunity to invite a dear friend, a wonderful friend to play with us today. Susan Leahy's here. For those of you who don't know her, she is a trainer, coach, teacher, in the transformational world. She works to transform boardrooms specifically with corporate culture, and is a dear, dear friend of mine and of this show's. So welcome.
Thank you, Freeman. I'm glad to hear you be here, but I have to say I feel Barnet's presence. So I'm glad to be here.
So she's channeling Barnet.
I'm channeling Barnet.
Playing the part of Barnet Bain today.
That's right.
That's right. Oh,
I'm excited to play with you today. It's going to be fun. So thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and what I love most, there's a couple things I love about you.
This is my favorite part.
Good. One of them is, I love our connection.
Yes.
I love how we connect. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I really appreciate about you is the permission you have. And I want to talk about that because that actually I think is going to be pertain to our conversation today.
Okay, please. Feel free. You have my permission.
Okay, so one of the things I understand about you is, and I have a language for it, you have a kind of mature innocence. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that, there's a great Buckminster Fuller quote. He said, "Dare to be naive."
Yeah.
Right? Very simple.
Yeah.
And the courage it takes to let go of sort of knowing or wanting to control.
Right.
And being able to give yourself permission.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I have to share an experience I had because when I first met you, I was kind of like, okay, this girl really has a lot of permission. She's a lot of fun, but I was wary of it. And then we were out one night, actually with a group of us.
Yeah.
And we were playing, as it were. And you play. Like, it was so much fun.
I have a lot of fun.
Oh, my God, it was fun. But there were some people around kind of tripping out about it.
Right.
Like, and I looked at you. Someone had said something. I don't remember what they said, but it was rude. And you said something like, "Yeah, you got that look on your face." You said, "Well, that was rude," and it was so innocent. It was like this little girl saying, "Well, why don't they want to play?"
Yeah.
I love that.
My little girl is certainly front forward always, and I always wonder, well, hey, why don't you want to play? And I want people to play, and I want people to feel good, and it makes me sad when people aren't getting it and aren't in the vibe.
That was literally the look on your face.
Yeah.
It was the sad little girl like, oh.
Oh, because you know what? It wasn't really about me. It was about they weren't there, and so they weren't able to be in the fun with us. And I wanted to stay in that fun place. So I love having fun. I love people, and I want people to just feel like they can be open and expressive. And I feel like sometimes we kind of live in a world where people feel closed down and disconnected, and it's not fun.
So the way you show up for me is it's such an offer. I kind of said on the show, I'm going to stop saying offer, but that's the best way to describe it. It's like the offer of playing with Susan Leahy is just for me. Like, I'm in,
right.
but that's how you show up in the world, right?
Yeah. Well, Freeman, I have to say, I was raised by a mother who was a professional clown.
Yes, I did know that.
Okay,
oh my gosh,
so
I'm glad you reminded me. Though.
You
That's
have to
fantastic.
know that. I mean, it has to be in my genes at some point. I kind of feel like I come from the original motivational speaker. My mom was. You think I have that kind of playful innocence? My mom, man, she had rose-colored glasses. The world was a beautiful place, and she loved people. And she just was a terrific. She modeled it for me.
Yeah.
And I wanna have that childlike innocence. I want my children to have that childlike innocence for the rest of their lives, and approach people. I think sometimes we stop being open to approach people.
So good. So possibilities narrow because we're narrowing or defending or contracting, and the idea of opening. But what I like about it, and again, the word mature innocence, because it isn't naive.
No.
I mean, it might be naive, but it's by choice. It's like I'm choosing. Like I can hold it both ways, right? Mm-hmm. And what it offers is such a profound opportunity to connect in a different way, which brings me to our guest today.
Yes. Talk about connection. I'm excited.
Talk about connection and reconnection.
Yeah.
Because Eric Pearl's with us. And of course, Eric Pearl is the author of The Reconnection.
Yes.
And he has done the reconnection all over the world, trained 75,000 people in this. And I'm not going to call it technique, because I know we're going to talk about the fact that we're not doing technique. But in this modality, in this, I'm going to call it consciousness. I don't know exactly what to call it, but you know what? Eric probably does.
Yeah,
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Hey, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we love having you. The work you do is profound.
Yes.
Susan, you've had an interesting experience with Eric's work. Do you want to clue
Well,
us
and
in?
I'll tell you, when you asked me to co-host, I had a moment of, woo, I was so excited. And then I went, oh, I wonder if I'm going to know who he's interviewing. And such a bizarre connection between you and I, Eric. My husband actually has a production company, and our production company actually taped testimonials from individuals who've actually been healed with the work that you're doing. So I had the opportunity to talk to grandmothers, mothers, children who've really been affected by and healed, profoundly affected.
Yeah.
There was one little boy, his name was Flynn, and he actually had cancer, stomach cancer, when he was 4 years old, and he went to the Reconnection, and he received a healing. It was amazing. So it was I got to actually connect with people that have gone through the Reconnection. So I'm excited to talk to you, Eric.
Well, great. I love that. Just the surprise connection that we all have.
I know.
Well, see, that's, I think, the point. You know, again, when I invited Susan to co-host this show, because Barnet's out of town, he's up in Vancouver for our listeners. He's working on the Milton Secret Project, which, of course, is the book by Eckhart Tolle and the movie that Barnet's making. When he said, I'm out of town, and I said, okay, co-host, who do I want to ask to come guest co-host to sit in his place? That it was you and that it was this particular thing. And there's so much to talk about.
Yes.
I mean, Eric, this is deep. I mean, both Susan and I share losing loved ones. You lost your mother. I lost essentially my best friend growing up, my cousin, and we were both 33, we were same age, to cancer. And just the way that healing has such a major part of our lives. And I know we're not alone, but your particular orientation towards it is profound. The idea that we're reconnecting and that each of us has the thread or strand. I'm going to let you language it, because I know you have this language to how you describe it that offers us the healing.
Yeah.
I've just muddled that. So Eric, help me out with what I'm trying to illustrate.
Well, reconnective healing really is it's a new level of healing that many of the scientists and researchers feel brings in a healing spectrum that includes everything any of us have been able to access naturally and through the energy healing techniques that we know of today, old and new, but expands beyond that into levels of coherent light and information that hasn't been witnessed here or observed here on the planet prior to now. In other words, it's not different. It gives us what we've had and gives us more. And it allows us to reconnect with our original fullness, the truth, the essence, the comprehensive self that we tend to experience in between lifetimes, that people who have had life after death experiences come back and report to us about, that your loved ones are in that gorgeous experience of right now. And a lot of the things that we teach, some of the things that we teach relate to what you opened your segment with today, on the concepts of dare to be naive, a childlike innocence, no need to know. I mean, one of the things that I teach the people who come in is that what limits or inhibits us from accessing the fullness of this healing is the part of our ego that feels that we need to know the answers.
That strikes me as painful. I mean, really.
A way to move beyond that is to be willing to say, and we'll say again and again until we become comfortable with it, I don't know. Because when we say that we know how things work, that we know the answers, we limit it. We put everything into this box of what we know to be right, and then everything outside of the box, we tend to revert to knowing, consciously or otherwise, to be wrong. But when we're willing to say we don't know, then we say, I don't know, however, I see this possibility and this and this and this, which tends at first, when we put these possibilities together, to sound like answers. But they're not really answers either. They're just enhanced building blocks that allow us to continue to look for more and more possibilities. It's like philosophy is the study, it's the love of the seeking of the answers. We'll all know all the answers all too soon, but we grow here not so much from the answers themselves, but by what we gain in seeking the answers.
love that.
Yeah. And how do you invite people to play? Because man, the egos are big. I mean, we are playing in a world with some really big egos. And so how do you because one of the things you've done is you've invited 75,000 people to play with you and learn this and put their ego aside. And so how did that translate for you?
Well, they don't all know that they're coming to put their egos aside.
You trick them. That's what you do. I know how you do this.
The spiritual world gives themselves permission to have greater ego than the rest of the world by continuously announcing or pronouncing that they don't have ego. And the conversations within the metaphysical world often sound something like this. You have an ego that needs to be transcended. I know this because I've transcended my ego. And
that's a mess right there.
That's a slippery slope.
Isn't that amazing?
It is.
Isn't that amazing right there? And they don't get what they're doing. They don't get what they're doing. So when we teach the seminars, and we teach all around the world, as a matter of fact, in your area, we're teaching in Newport Beach, November 1, 2, and 3. And what we'll do is on November 1, we'll give a Friday night presentation for 3 hours. We talk about the history, the theory, the philosophy, the discovery of reconnective healing, the science behind it. And we bring up volunteers from the audience so you get to witness the healings live. And once we see what goes on, we begin to recognize that there's something distinctly different because the healings tend to be fairly instantaneous and they tend to be lifelong, and we give everyone there a chance to feel this in your hands. But Saturday and Sunday, I usually warn people, and I use that word intentionally. I say, don't come to the seminar. Don't come, and I mean it. Don't come if you think we're all going to sit around and hold hands and and do all the things that we think we know and burn incense and wave crystals. It won't happen that way. Can
I jump in? Because there's a couple distinctions that you've said that I don't want to let slide away. I think that the first thing, and I was sort of joking about tricking people, but I that's not exactly inaccurate, because what I think is so common, we're such an outcome-driven culture, right? And we're so into pathologizing, right? We're into fixing things. Like, the whole background of psychology, and I have a background in psychology, Susan, I know you do, and I'm sure, Eric, you have some background in it, because that's what we've been all doing as a consciousness, right? What I see you talking about is a kind of human upgrade. I mean, that's my language, right? It's a connection to something.
That's mine, too. It's exactly what I call it.
Yeah.
It's really technical. We know today from 6 studies done around the world internationally, some are published, some are waiting to be published, that this actually changes the light emission from our DNA, our very DNA. And if our DNA is functioning as our software, and if our brain is functioning as our hardware, then what's actually happening with reconnective healing is we are facilitating a human software upgrade.
I love that.
Allows us
it's a new operating system.
Yeah, we're getting a new operating system.
Yeah, but so the point I was trying to make is when we come back to why people show up, look, they show up to be fixed, or I can use the word healed, but I know that we're talking about healing in a different way, which is, again, reorganizing or again, just the language, reconnecting. I mean, it's such perfect language, connecting to something that doesn't need to come from outside. And the point you were making, Eric, which I think is so brilliant, is that so many of the modalities that are quote-unquote healing modalities get distracted by either technique or even ritual, and very quickly become almost, what's the word? They almost become sort of, help me play the game.
It becomes routine. It almost becomes about the technique. It's almost like a game.
It's almost like superstition.
Yeah, maybe it like becomes, a ritual, like
But almost superstitious. Like we then attach something that exists to a modality or a technique,
as if this is what healed me.
Right.
Not
that robs
us
of that it is available, and it's more of an accessing. I mean, you can correct me if I got that wrong, Eric.
No. You're doing beautifully. I'm thinking I should invite you to speak at the seminars. First of all, people don't come to the seminars for their own healing for the most part. They come to learn how to facilitate healings for others. And the reality is that we cannot facilitate or give a gift that we're unwilling to accept ourselves.
Yeah.
We cannot stand in fear, protecting ourselves in white flames and gold flames and purple flames, pulling up imaginary zippers, shaking off imaginary negative energy, and then spraying ourselves down with alcohol in case we missed anything, and facilitate healings that reside in love. We can't stand in lack and limitation, adding healing toys to ourselves and wearing ridiculous-looking pyramid hats and other such things, and facilitate healings that reside in the abundance of us recognizing that we are abundantly enough. So we can't stand in the need for control, as you spoke about, doing technique A, B, and C in steps 1, 2, and 3, and facilitate healings that reside in the freedom of us standing as the truth of who we and what we are, the observer and the observer, the witness and the witness, the seer and the seen, and learning to observe without judgment, without focusing, as you said, on an end result, but instead focusing on the process of the healing, not trying to bring about a specific result, but recognizing that our role as healers is to open the door. Their role, the other person's role, the recipient, is to have the courage to choose to walk through that door, but our egos tell us to open the door with our right hand and kick them through with our left foot.
So what I love, and we're going to have to take a quick break, though. When we come back, what I want to talk about, because there's a paradox in all of this. The interesting thing is all these people trying to shed their ego end up creating all these rituals that then they identify with, which is all ego. So I want to talk, when we get back,
cycle.
it is, but I want to talk about where ego fits, because obviously there is a way that gets to come along too. But we need to take a commercial break. So let us pay some bills. We're going to come right back, and I want to dive right in there, Eric, with where does ego fit? How do we find an appropriate place for it so this other self or this other consciousness or whatever we're going to call it can emerge? So stay with us, because we'll be right back here with Susan Leahy, Eric Pearl, after these messages here on Cutting Edge Consciousness.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
All right, welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. This is Susan Leahy. I am a guest co-host for Barnet Bain with Freeman Michaels, and we've got Eric Pearl on the phone with us today from the Reconnection, and we're talking about ego.
Yeah, where does it fit?
Where does it all fit? So let's talk a little bit more about ego. I know that, Freeman, you were kind of connecting about this. And what did you want to ask, Eric?
Well, again, the minute we're trying to reject the ego, we're in our ego, right? So there's got to be a way, and I'm very curious, Eric, how you integrate that so the ego can come along, but we're not identified, so it's not getting in the way, or there's some way of relating to it that changes the paradigm, if you will. Can you explain how you work with that?
Yeah, we talk so much about transcending the ego, getting rid of the ego, and I don't think we're really looking at this from an appropriate perspective. First of all, I don't believe that God, love, whoever you view as a supreme intelligence, was sitting around creating humanity and accidentally dropped ego in, made a mistake, and went, oops, now I'll never get that sucker out.
Yeah, right.
I mean, ego is a constantly vigilant teacher for us, learning balance, not too much, not too little. We're not supposed to get rid of it. We're supposed to learn how not to allow it to dominantly lead us.
Right.
So what's interesting is by the end of, we've been so busy learning techniques and studying years of this and that and the other and how to do things just a certain way, when really the secret is for us to become the light, to become the healing, and just by our very presence of consciousness to inspire the healings within others. And so I tell people that, by the end of just one weekend seminar, just one, I can pretty much make you two promises, which are A, you will be able to do anything and everything in the way of healing that I can do. And B, you will be able to do anything and everything in the way of healing that any human being on this planet can do. But some people don't allow themselves to do it because their ego is that they still want to bring in their techniques. They've got their damn little certificates on their walls, and their ego says, you're going to know that I can do this and I can do that, and I can spin the chakras clockwise or counterclockwise. The colors in your auras, and I, me.
Yeah.
And in reality, every time we try to change something, we're not truly honoring and acknowledging that we're here to witness the perfect orchestration of the universe in the healing process. That every time we're trying to protect ourselves from negative energy, what we're really doing is we're not recognizing that the energy with which we interact in the healing process is the perfection of the love of that interaction. And by trying to shake it off, spray it off, or protect ourselves from it, what we're trying to do is shake off and spray off and protect ourselves from the love of the universe. And it's all about our perspective.
Which includes that part of us,
Yeah,
right?
and I'm hearing you say love, and I'm hearing you say light. And I know in videos that I've seen you do, you talk about the word worthy and kind of knowing our completeness, our wholeness. And also there's this consciousness that you said something in a video I watched that really kind of stuck with me that I wanted to ask you about, was that this is going to be something that is just going to be. That it's not going to...
It's a new normal.
It's going to become the new normal. So I'm curious, Eric, where do you feel like it's going to go? What are we going to look like 15 years from now?
I love that.
What is it going to look like? Your seminars are no longer being taught because it's already integrated, but what does that mean? What does it look like?
Or it's in first grade.
Or is it in first grade?
I mean, I've heard you say that you like working with kids because they don't come in with all these preconceived notions of what healing's supposed to look like, right?
Right. Well, we talk about supernatural and extraordinary. But if we ever look at the word, supernatural means it's supernatural. Extraordinary.
I love that.
Totally natural.
It's extraordinary.
A bigger dose of natural and a bigger dose of ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm sure that at a certain point in time, this is already becoming second nature. Soon it won't need to be taught. Soon children will look at their parents and say, really? Did people really used to swallow poisons to try to get healthy?
So are there people doing this not knowing they're doing this then? You've named it the reconnection.
Everything that we're accessing in the way of healing that we're conscious of or not necessarily so conscious of is a part of this. But this is making its presence here. And part of the challenge to the ego is that as of now, at least, we actually do have to raise the bar of our ego down enough to be willing to learn it from another human being. The people who say, I'm already doing this, that's the level of ego that prevents them from actually ever being able to access it. It's like a perfectly designed gift and reward from the universe. The challenge is, can we transcend the fear-based rituals, the complicated techniques, and the self-entitlement that says, I was reconnected in a dream, and say, I am willing to learn this from another human being. And the ego that wants to say, I already know it, that spiritual self-entitlement, is precisely what's limiting those people from being able to bring it through as fully as others.
Well, and another piece, and Susan, you kind of hinted at this, is that, again, it's so natural or supernatural. It's so super and so natural that people might be doing it without cognitively knowing what they're doing. I mean, one of the things I believe is that, we're coming to a place where our cognitive mind is catching up with or starting to look at integrating other ways of experiencing. And because it's been such a head trip for so long, it feels like there's a lot of work to get back in the body or get in the gut or tap into this field, if you will, or whatever the language is, the source, because we've so over-identified with thinking. But what's interesting is I think we might have just developed the cognitive capacities enough where we can start to grok or understand this stuff. That's my sort of take. I'm curious what you think about what I just said, Eric.
Well, we are already accessing parts of it. And we're here to learn how to access the entirety of it. But part of that learning is to stop doing what we've been doing. We've been trying to become spiritual enough to be worthy enough to be healers. We've been trying to do enough to become enough. And what we have to recognize is that we will never be spiritual enough to be healers. We will never become worthy enough. We can't become worthy enough to be healers because we're already worthy enough by having been born, and we cannot become that which we already are. So as long as we are looking outside to find the answers, we're missing that we own the truth of this inside if we only just relax, let go, and take a breath.
I mean, what a prettier world it would be if really we could embody what you just said, that we're worthy in our beingness because we were born.
Innate well-being.
Innate.
There's an innate
I mean,
well-being.
and to just really settle into that well-beingness on a daily basis, would remove so much of the dis-ease that runs through so many of us, through all of us.
And the tendency to overcomplicate and overcomplicate and overcomplicate because, again, I think it's a head trip. And what we're talking about is integrating in a different way some other capacities that, at the end of the day are going to allow us to tap into more than our head can process. That's kind of what I've been trying to say.
And so this is strange. Can we do this virtually?
Oh, yeah, good point. Distant healing?
Can we do distant healing?
Absolutely. On the Sundays of our seminars, we focus in specifically to allow ourselves to recognize how to do self-healing and how to do distance healing. In reality, we're doing it all along.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
Yeah, so now I'm going to ask some questions, and if I'm tying it too closely to dogma or ideology or something that's been said too many times, we'll knock that down too.
Do we give you the buzzer? Is that
right? Buzzword.
Or we should ring a bell. Dong.
Dong. But just the intention. Like I think of Lynn McTaggart, who's a dear friend of this show. Her book, The Intention Experiment, and she talks a lot about distant healing. In fact, I'm guessing you know her, but whether you know her or not,
yeah, we're good friends.
Yeah. So that kind of way that we hold an intent, and again, when multiple people hold an intent, the impact that has, felt around the world on the other side of the world or whatever, tie that in, because I think that's what, Susan, you're sort of aiming towards. Can you tie that? So the word that I was bringing up is a held intent, and I don't want that to get brittle, but I'm wondering if that isn't decent language to explain what we're talking about here.
It depends on your understanding of intention. And here's where Lynn and I go in slightly different directions, because Lynn is still focused on intention of a specific result. And what I'm saying is, I think if we rise above the intention of result, of directing what the outcome should be, but instead step into the intention of allowing for a healing to take the form that it takes, then we either, I tell people when they come in to have reconnective healing sessions, I teach the people learning how to give this, I say, let your people know that if they're fortunate, which is not a spiritually popular word, but I'm using it to make a point, if you're fortunate, your healing will come in the form you're intending. But if you are truly, truly, truly fortunate, your healing will come in a form that you haven't even dreamt of, one that the universe designed specifically for you. So your choice is not to determine was the healing good or bad, because that really translates to, did the healing turn out the way I, in my limited human conscious educated mind, pretending that I understand the mind of God, decided the healing should take? Or did it maybe come in a form that I haven't yet recognized, and my responsibility is to step back 3 feet and say, wait, I'm missing the larger picture. Where is the healing in that?
Yeah, and it's that sense of, okay, so if I get rid of the stomach tumor, then I can go back and live my life the way I was living. But obviously there was something going on in my life that wasn't in alignment, that wasn't in a higher vibration. And so it's that sense of maybe the deeper healing is the more important healing. It's not the stomach tumor.
Well, it's the offer of the stomach tumor, maybe. The offer that it has something that it can reflect back to us that's going to help us connect more meaningfully to a deeper purpose for being here or something of that nature.
And we were really talking about this earlier, that like, I think that so many times we look at the disease as if the disease is bad. Right. And I mean, isn't the disease really just part of the human experience?
Right.
So I'm resonating with what you're saying about this idea of, it's not about going in with a specific healing of getting rid of this. It's about being open and letting go of the outcome of, well, whatever healing is meant for me is divine and perfect.
Yeah, and I think the go ahead, Eric. You can respond.
I was just going to say, for instance, you go to a medical doctor and you've got cancer and it's in a tumor. They cut out the tumor. But why does the cancer tend to come back within 5 years? It's not the cancer tends to come back. The cancer didn't leave. The tumor, which is the symptom of the cancer, left. But leaving the imbalance in the body reproduced the cancer. We have a headache. We take an aspirin to get rid of the headache, and we think that we're better, but the headache wasn't the problem. the headache was the indicator that there was a problem.
Yeah.
If you walk into your house and the smoke alarm is going off in the kitchen and you smell smoke, you take a scissors, cut the smoke alarm, sit down and say, oh, God, I'm so much happier now. I hated that noise. Of course not. You look for the fire.
Look
funny.
for
That's
the
funny.
What
fire.
true healing is about is it doesn't address the symptom or the tumor. It addresses the imbalance in the system. And by returning to a natural, higher, more coherent vibration of light, the imbalances in our system, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, career-wise, relationship-wise, vibrate out because they as appropriate for that person because they've got nothing left to hold on to. And if we understand only two things from this whole interview, understand these next two statements, which are A, healing is truly just that simple, and B, anything more complicated than that, sets, rituals, techniques, crystals, anything more complicated than that is designed to sell you something. And it's not so much that it's designed to sell you the object or the ritual or the technique. It's designed to sell you on the fear that you are less than abundantly enough. It's designed to sell you on the illusion that you are less than abundantly enough. And really the gift of that is us getting fed up with that and suddenly recognizing the true perfection of the abundance that we are.
I am enough.
And
I
you can
am
take
enough.
that to the bank and cash it, folks, because that has
Not that I have
value.
an opinion. Not that I have an opinion on the subject.
Right. Not that you've thought about this at all, but we're at the end of the segment. So I love that you ended with that because,
Yes.
again, that's the value statement is, look, folks, here's the deeper thread that when we really get this, everything reconfigures and reconforms and life can have a whole nother dimension that, most of us have been closed off to. So, Eric, I am 100% behind your work. I love it. I want to tell folks again the dates that you're going to be in Newport, and I'd love to give them a website so that they can find out more information, sign up, whatever they need to do. Can you help us out with that?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, just like the book is called The Reconnection, Heal Others, Heal Yourself, the website is thereconnection.com. You have to use the word the, so thereconnection.com. We'll be teaching in Newport Beach the weekend of November 1 through 3, Toronto November 8 through 10, London November 23 through 24, Sydney November 29 through December 1, and Mexico City December 6 through 8.
And Eric, I know that Freeman would love to come out and speak at your conference.
Yeah, I'm always available.
And I'll come watch him.
Oh, that's great.
Wonderful. I love it. Well, let's chat about that one. Little presentation on the side. Sounds great.
I'd love to.
That's it.
And listen, we would love to have you back. So
Yes.
we will plan, because I know Barnet had really wanted to connect with you. So when we can, especially if we get you in studio, we'd love to have you come back, Eric.
It would be absolutely my pleasure to do that. We'll even do a whole show next time.
Awesome. And for those of you listening, I invite you to come back because we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back here on Cutting Edge Consciousness.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here with Susan Leahy. Wow, that was cool.
Wow, I am worthy. That's all.
And that the well-being is innate.
It's
And-
abundant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of coherence. You know, that term is so interesting, and that, it really is a light term. In other words, it can be used in physics to express how photons interact. They either interact destructively or constructively. And that's literally the language physicists use, right? Because when they're destructive, they're meeting, as it were, and in such a way that they cancel each other out. But when they move into a state of coherence, they actually then, it's like waves. They form these sort of parallel waves that line up, right? And then they become bigger than the sum of their parts, and they can generate incredible light, energy, light.
That's it.
And so, that each of us has this inherent sort of something that wants to be emerging through
This
us.
little light of mine.
That's it.
I'm gonna let it shine.
Go, mama.
Right? I mean, it's like it is that, right?
It is.
It's that, and maybe my light ain't so little.
Well,
And maybe
yeah.
that's the lesson that we need to
Yeah.
get rid of this little light of mine. I mean, it's that we are big lights, and maybe maybe that's what's being integrated. That's what we're getting. That's what we're feeling, sensing, being reconnected to.
And that it is something that wants to take us somewhere that we can't always see from here.
No.
And that's so appropriate.
Right.
We had Jim Shannon, who you know, Jim. We love that guy. And he said,
He's a fun ride.
He is a fun ride. We had him on the show a couple weeks ago, and he said, let God finish the sentence.
Yeah.
And I think the disease really is this being tied to outcomes that are so small. Like, really, we're going to tie our lives to, the number on our bank account or the, I don't know what qualifies decisions, but they're not.
Well, and they do, and we do.
Great.
Yeah, I'm not going to do this till I have that. I'm not going to be this till I have that.
I'm not good enough unless I, unless I win a Nobel Peace Prize. Well, look, at the end of the day, you're worthy. And the expression of each of us, the unique expression, this thing that wants to be born through us, this light that wants to shine through us, is in there.
Right. And when you think about that, if like our children could really embody that and take that message forward.
Well, they kind of do, Susan, because I've been around your kids, and they're little lights.
I'm hoping that's what if they could embody
with
it.
You as a mother.
Is that, oh, God.
No, because here's the thing. I put up a video on Facebook. We'll put it up on YouTube. It's on our YouTube channel about conscious parenting. And what is so beautiful about that piece is that our kids are our master teachers.
Mm-hmm. They are.
And the learning is mutual.
Mm-hmm.
And what is wanting to be healed is intergenerational.
Right.
That we really do get handed something that we at some point have the consciousness to choose. We can go, wow, this is the story I was told about who I am, what's possible, how the world works. And I'm up to doing it different.
Right. Well, and you know what? Eric Pearl says something that's so unbelievably phenomenal that I saw him talking about this, that we think that children are empty vessels that need to be filled. And the reality is that really they are brought forth to prove to us that we ourselves are empty. Totally. And that's what we forget, is that this is not just about the fact that we've got to teach them and pour into them. It's like the more we can empty ourselves out as adults, and that, I think, gosh, is what I'm making a connection to what he's saying. God, if we can get past the technique, empty ourselves, and it's not about me already being there and filling myself up with all of this information and all of this knowledge and all of this wisdom. It's, can I just continue to empty myself out and just be in the worthiness of me?
We've used language on this show. We've called it the sacred I don't know. Can I really, really embrace not knowing and then, enjoy the ride?
Right.
And let the unfolding.
I don't know if I
That was funny.
I don't know if I can do that. Well, and that, it's one of those things to talk about, but then to really sit there and think about it and go, well, I don't know if I can do that, so it's, because knowing it would then mean you already know. So it's, it's a fun ride. You want to know how things are going to go. So.
Yeah, we're tripping on our own consciousness sometimes. No, I mean, that's right. It was interesting because we brought this up in the show when we develop certain techniques to get out of our ego.
Yeah.
And until the point at which the technique becomes an ego play. Mm-hmm. And so there is this paradox. And what I was hinting at, and he kind of covered this, but I'll use different language for it, is how do I want to be with the part of me that wants to know? Because I don't want to kill that part of me. So some part of me wants to know and so forth. But there's so many beautiful moments where I can say to that part of me, it's okay. Yeah. You can just stay in the back seat.
Be the observer.
I'm driving the bus right now. We don't know where we're going.
We don't know where we're going. But and it's that sense of you can self-soothe yourself.
That's right.
I don't know, and it's going to be okay.
Well, and it's also this integrating of the cognitive mind. Mm-hmm. We have been on a head trip for several hundred years, maybe longer, where it's been about, well, since the age of reason, really. It's like, okay, the rational mind helped us pull us out of the dark ages, helped pull us out of superstition, because people were, sacrificing virgins to please the volcano.
Yeah. Thank God. Look,
it worked. It took 3 virgins, but it finally calmed down. No, it's geology. So we went, okay, maybe it's not sacrificing virgins. There's this geology, and we can kind of see it and figure it out from a more intelligent, thoughtful way. But then, obviously, we went so far with that, well, what happened to the mystery? What happened to the mystical experiences? Yeah. So I kind of see it as a rebalancing.
It is.
And I meant what I said when I feel like my cognitive faculties are sufficient. It's now about these other capacities, but I don't want to diminish my cognitive faculties because I have this great way of of ordering and organizing it without being too tied to ordering and organizing it.
And to me, as I'm sitting here hearing this, what it feels like to me is that we're really going into the space of the integration of the masculine and the feminine.
I love that.
Which is really our full selves.
Yeah.
My full self, my masculine self and my feminine self, your masculine self,
Totally.
your feminine self. I mean, it's the integration of all that we are, and it feels like it's been really fragmented.
Well, it has.
And
I mean, we've covered this a little bit on this show, but I'm so grateful you bring it up because it's so worth saying again that, look, for me, and I know Barnet shares a lot of this thinking, is that the feminine is the context. It's the why for which the what makes sense. Like, what are we doing? Well, it's not what we're doing. It's why we're doing what we're doing that's so important. So again, there's so many things that we're doing because we've gotten attached to them as a what. You know, there's factories in China building truckloads of stuff that who knows whether we need it or not.
Landfill.
Yeah, but where's the why in this? Where's the feminine to say, here's the context for which the doing makes sense? Yeah. Right now, the doing is such a mechanism. And it's the same with the intellect. It's such a head trip. Well, where's your gut in this? Right. You know, where's your heart in this? You know, because that's another way of ordering and organizing information.
Yeah. And can we be fully integrated and not do this? You know, I mean, because that's what happens with us human beings. You know, we tend to be extremists, and so it's that sense of it's going to be fun to see how this integration plays out, and which might be fun to swing over to one side.
You know, and look, so again, it's one of those things of the whole plane on course story. You know, the plane is off course 97% of the time, but it basically knows where it's going. Right. So the idea of balance and the idea of coming back to center. And look, I'm not against having rituals and practices to do that. Right. Just don't become attached to the practice. Yeah. That's what's giving you the outcome. I mean, it is, but not because
then who are you if you let go of the practice?
Right.
Because this is the piece that I think really plagues individuals and human beings, male, female, whatever it is that sense of if whatever the technique, the job, the role, the title is taken away and you don't have that anymore,
who am I?
Who are you?
Yeah. No, it's a great point.
Who are you?
Yeah. And so the more deep, more thoughtful, more substantial understanding of something that is innate. Right. You know, to really believe. Artists have this. You know, when an artist creates something, you know, the really great artists, they'll always say, I don't know where that came from.
I don't know. Yeah, it was Leahy. Came through me.
It came through me. They have a relationship with the mystery that doesn't diminish them. It actually expresses how beautiful a gift they are because they're the instrument through which this thing got expressed.
And they can acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And it can be acknowledged.
Yeah.
You know, this is a really simple form. I don't know why I'm thinking of my dad right now, but I'm hearing my dad in my voice, and he said, you know, it's always easy to love yourself when the phone is ringing.
Right.
You know, when people are calling you and people are wanting you and people are kind of singing your praises. But he's like, do you love yourself when you're sitting alone in the room and nobody's knocking on the door, nobody's ringing, and it's just you? And it's that sense of it's the same thing. Can you be with the divine when it's not about outside, when you're just alone?
Sometimes, you know, again, we love paradox here. So I think often, and this word balance is so critical, that alone sometimes is this beautiful gift of solitude, and alone sometimes is isolation. Right. And it becomes a defense mechanism. And it may have started as solitude, but look, if you're spending 50 years in a cave and you're calling that your life, you blew it. Yeah. I mean, really, it might have started off as solitude. Wow, I'm finding myself. But then, you know, you get lost in that and find yourself to go give the gift because we are relational beings, right?
Yes, we are.
So it's really a delicate balance. You know, at what point are we moving? Is it codependent or is it interdependent? Yeah. You know, do I have enough alone time, me time, solitude to sort of refuel and reflect? So funny. You and I were talking about this recently about going on retreats and how cool it is to walk away from your life. Yeah. To just kind of take note of what's going on inside of me and, you know, reconnect.
Well, you can't, I feel like sometimes you can't see yourself when you're standing right in front of your life.
Well, yeah.
You know, it's like it's just too much in your face. And so you got to step away, and somehow it's that sense of giving you the opportunity to exhale and
in simple terms of breaking the routine.
And you're reconnecting. You're connecting back into another part of yourself.
I think we're talking about reconnection.
We're talking about reconnection, right?
We've got a theme for the show. How cool is that?
The word is genius. Connect, reconnect. Because isn't that what we all want to do? Reconnect with ourselves, with the universe.
Tapping is another piece of language. I'm tapping. We use the tapping technique sometimes. A little techniquey, but still pretty cool. because
Yeah,
it can be
our techniques are not bad. I don't think that he's
well
at all saying
no, I don't think he is.
bad.
Well, but so look, I still know some of the tappers who go, I got to go tap about this. And I'm like, do you really have to tap about it? Like, okay, it's a cool technique. I love the technique. And Nick is also a great friend of ours.
But in that moment in their life, that's the technique that is giving them some connection.
So what they've done is they've attached now their well-being to the tapping. And we're saying, no, the well-being is innate. Yeah. Tapping was a cool tool to tap into a sense of peace and ease and a way of relating.
Well-being is innate.
Yeah.
Right. But we don't, I mean, I keep thinking of my son the other day. He's like, Mom, I need a Band-Aid, Band-Aid. Oh, yeah. And kids are obsessed with Band-Aids.
They are.
Obsessed.
My kids still do it. 8 and 10. They're still going, I need a Band-Aid. I'm like, you really don't need a Band-Aid.
You need a Band-Aid.
If a Band-Aid makes you feel better, I'll give you one.
So let's just think about that. What kind of Band-Aids do we put on our lives? You know, they love the physical Band-Aids, but aren't we putting emotional Band-Aids everywhere?
Constantly.
Band-Aids. I mean, we never outgrow that.
You know what's cool? This just came to mind. Have you heard the Kaiser Permanente commercial?
Thrive. No.
Thrive, which I love as a motto, about hugging and the effects of hugging in terms of brain chemistry. It's really great. So my kids hear this on the radio, and my daughter's like, we should hug more. Oh. And I was like, oh, how cool is that? You know, I mean, we should hug more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a radio ad because it stimulates some part of the brain and.
Well, you know what that is? It's connection.
It is.
It is. I mean, with that they've and then that's one thing too about Eric Pearl is that. You know, people listening might be, okay, reconnection, healings, laying hands on what, yada, yada. But his work has been researched and it's scientifically backed.
Definitely.
I mean, that's the amazing thing. And I think that's why it's having the level of success. I mean, this is for real. It's doing something at the biological level. They're able to track it. So it's
and
amazing.
that again is this marrying of the cognitive with the intuitive and with all these other, you know, maybe the mystical experiences. And I do feel like we've got a convergence, like this moment in time, at least for me, and you share it because we hang out together, and we're transformational leaders, right?
But let's not get our ego in the way.
Right.
But let's not let our ego.
Hold off. Don't go there. It's such a slippery slope. So that part
I am a transformational leader.
But that part comes too.
Right.
That part comes too. And with that, we have come to the end of today's broadcast.
That was so fast.
I know it always is. It's good when you're having fun.
It was very fun.
So I want to say a couple things. I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for playing in my sandbox.
My pleasure. And thank you, Barnet, wherever you are.
And I want to give folks your website. Now, I want to just plug a little bit that oftentimes, folks, we get caught in impasses in communication, especially around work. And Susan is a genius at helping people develop communication. And there's some technique with this, having to do with how we hold a vision, how we interact, what's the quality of the experience, and so forth. So tell folks before we leave how they can find you.
Well, you can find me, just search my name either at YouTube or on my website, Susan Leahy, and that's Leahy, SusanLeahy.com. And I have an interesting site called Robert's Rules Made Simple. So any of you out there who use Robert's Rules of Order as a book to run your meetings.
Yes, that's some of the business work.
Right, and I am transforming how people learn Robert's Rules of Order as a tool, a communication tool, to actually help their boards really transform to become a team.
Perfect.
So robertsrulesmadesimple.com.
And we, of course, will hope to see you back here again sometime when Barnet is out of town. For all of you listening or watching, we thank you for tuning in, and we invite you to keep coming back to Cutting Edge Consciousness.